Oh, there's Pollock. You see, I think even in comparison, Pollock looks a bit tame. Not really. But again, I mean, look at, here's the canvas that Pollock is working on, one of these enormous mural-sized canvases, right? He's stepping on the canvas, he's smoking. A lot of times you'll find or sometimes you'll find a cigarette butt embedded within the work, right? All kinds of debris. But you can also see that there's an extension, right, of that splashing onto the floor of the studio, so that sometimes you want to ask yourself, what's the difference between those splash marks that are left on the floor of the studio and the ones that remain, right? These are supposed to be more intentional, controlled, at least to a certain degree. This is outside the frame of painting, and yet there's an interesting way of thinking about the correspondence between them, and I think Richard Serra's work gets us to do that, right? So Pollock was splashing paint onto the canvas. Serra is going to splash molten lead directly onto the floor of the warehouse. Okay, now back to the props, right? So this is Richard Serra's one-ton prop of 1969. And once again, completely working with the forces of gravity and the material's self-support, right? He's doing nothing more than taking these 4 steel plates and propping them up against each other. There's no welding, there's no soldering, there's no clipping, clamping, or securing. They're literally just propped up against each other, relying upon each other, right, in order to remain standing. And so in a remarkable way, calling our attention to the precariousness of constructed sculpture, maybe the precariousness of such seemingly durable materials as steel, the way in which a classic box-like form can, if just suffering the wrong kind of gravitational pull or movement, completely collapse like a house of cards. The chapter also discusses Andy Warhol's oxidation paintings from the late 70s, 1977-78. And in the second half of today's lecture, we'll get back to Warhol, but for now, we can talk about these, the series of oxidation paintings within the context of our discussion of Johns and Serra. I mean, clearly, well, oxidation. Oxidation is its own process of physical transformation, right? The oxidizing and rusting of metals, in this case of copper metallic paint. And one way to oxidize that metallic paint is to have it come in contact with other substances that would begin to tarnish it and rust it and have that chemical reaction occur, right? And in this case, what Warhol did in a whole series of works, both large and small, is ask many of the young guys hanging around his studio called The Factory to pee, to urinate on the metal plates. And the urine would oxidize the copper. So what does that bring to mind? Something that we just saw.